Welcome to today's deep dive. I want you to just take a second and imagine waking up on a Tuesday morning.
Okay.
There's no alarm clock blaring, no frantic commute through gridlock traffic. Your daughter is sitting on the floor strumming your guitar, and you're just casually sipping your coffee.
Sounds pretty ideal.
Right. And you glance at your phone and realize your business generated $10,000 in revenue overnight.
Yeah.
And your investments are up $250,000 for the month. But, and I think this is the key part, more importantly than the money, your mind is completely quiet.
Which is rare.
Extremely rare. For a lot of people who are just exhausted by modern hustle culture, that level of peace feels entirely impossible without, sacrificing massive financial growth.
Well, what's fascinating here is that most mainstream business advice insists that you actually have to choose between the two.
Yeah.
The traditional narrative relentlessly focuses on growth at all costs.
Yes.
Optimizing every waking second, grinding 80 hours a week just to scale a massive corporation.
But the scene I just described is an actual Tuesday morning for Grant Sabatier. It's taken directly from his book, Inner Entrepreneur, A Proven Path to Profit and Peace.
And Sabatier completely flips that traditional narrative upside down. He argues that true wealth isn't merely hitting some high net worth. It's having the ultimate freedom to dictate exactly how your time is spent.
And Sabatier isn't some theoretical academic preaching from a business school. He is a completely bootstrapped entrepreneur. He built 7 different companies by the time he was 40.
7.
7. Never took on a single outside investor, and did it all without ever taking a business class. So the mission for this deep dive is to pull apart his blueprint.
Yeah, we're going to explore how you can build a business that serves your life instead of surrendering your life to serve a business.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with a rather brutal assessment of the traditional 9-to-5 job.
Oh, yeah. This part is eye-opening.
It really is. Sabatier calls standard W-2 employment, which is the U.S. tax code term for your standard salary job, the absolute slowest path to wealth.
Because when you look at the mechanics of standard employment, it is a system fundamentally designed to cap your leverage. You are trading your time for a fixed amount of money.
Right.
And someone else completely dictates your earning ceiling. Furthermore, that income is taxed at the highest possible rates.
Yeah, Sabatier highlights how minimal the upside really is. He notes that the average annual raise hovers around a meager 1 to 3%.
Which barely covers inflation.
Exactly. You are essentially building wealth for the founders and the shareholders while absorbing the constant risk that you could be let go at any moment just to improve their quarterly margins.
And the psychological toll of that arrangement is staggering.
He references a 2023 Gallup report showing that 77% of workers are completely disengaged from their jobs. 77%.
That's massive.
More than half are actively looking for an exit. People are spending the vast majority of their waking hours in roles they merely tolerate, just trying to survive until the weekend.
And the broader context here makes relying on that system even more precarious. The age-old advice to just keep your head down, do good work, and trust a corporation to take care of you. It's essentially obsolete.
Completely.
Sabatier points out the massive wave of recent layoffs hitting companies that were historically considered the gold standard of job security.
Right, like big tech.
Amazon, Meta, and Google alone recently laid off a combined 75,000 people.
Unbelievable.
Then you have IBM publicly pausing hiring for roughly 7,800 roles, explicitly stating they expect AI to handle those jobs in the near future.
And the World Economic Forum is projecting that 25% of all current jobs could be replaced or fundamentally altered by AI within just 5 years.
So that perceived safety of a salary starts to look a lot more like a liability.
Which brings us to the entrepreneurial advantage, specifically regarding equity. This is something that often gets glossed over, but it is the actual engine of real wealth creation.
Yes, the tax advantages alone are huge.
Right, because unlike a salary, which is aggressively taxed the moment it hits your bank account, the equity you build in a business grows tax-free. You only pay taxes the day you sell the asset. And even then, it's typically taxed at lower capital gains rates.
Sabatier uses his own company, Millennial Money, as the prime example of this.
Yeah, he spent 5 years building it. When he finally sold it, that single transaction increased his net worth 7-fold. A salary simply cannot produce that kind of mathematical leap.
It forces a necessary reflection on how you are deploying your own daily energy. Sabatier frames money simply as stored energy.
I love that framing.
If you are sitting in traffic, dreading a toxic workplace, or pouring effort into a job that caps your potential, you are expending energy.
Huh?
You are actively depleting your reserves for a flat return.
Right.
Conversely, when you channel that same effort into a business you own, you are investing your energy. It compounds over time. So the question you have to ask yourself is whether your current daily routine is depleting your energy or compounding it.
I hear that, but walking away from a steady paycheck is terrifying for most people. It's incredibly easy to build a wall of mental barriers. People think, I don't have the time, I don't have the startup capital, and I definitely don't have a revolutionary Steve Jobs level idea.
But Sabatier addresses this directly. He didn't have a trust fund or a world-changing invention when he started. He views those common hesitations as inherited excuses that just keep people paralyzed in the status quo.
If we connect this to the bigger picture.
The barrier to entry for entrepreneurship has never been lower, primarily because you do not need an original idea to succeed.
That's such a relief to hear.
Sabatier outlines alternative paths that bypass the need for pure invention entirely. The first is what he calls building from a blueprint. You can simply copy a successful model that is already operating in the open.
We are currently in the middle of this massive build in public movement on social media where founders are giving away their playbooks for free.
Exactly. He highlights a fascinating guy named Mitchell Sorkin.
Oh yeah, the ATM guy.
Right. Sorkin is building a highly lucrative ATM empire, and he documents the entire process on X. He breaks down exactly how he acquires smaller operators, how he negotiates the placement fees with local store owners, and the exact margins he targets. He's literally handing over the blueprint.
Then there's Kyle Nolan, who built a personal finance tool called Projection Lab. Nolan publishes his monthly revenue figures, his churn rates, and crowdsources his software updates in public. You don't have to guess what works, you can just follow their verified steps.
The second alternative path is acquisition entrepreneurship. This leverages a massive demographic shift, often called the silver tsunami.
The retiring baby boomers.
Millions of them are hitting retirement age, and they own highly profitable, established, and frankly boring businesses. Laundromats, HVAC companies, commercial landscaping.
Right.
They have proven cash flow, existing customer bases, and trained staff, but the owners want to cash out and retire. Stepping in to acquire an existing profitable operation is often far less risky than trying to launch a startup from zero.
There is a massive caveat to all of this, though. If you use these models purely to chase a dollar amount, you are going to hit a wall. Sabatier learned this firsthand and shares a pretty harrowing wake-up call in the book.
Yeah, this part was intense.
In his early 30s, he became entirely obsessed with hitting $1 million net worth. He was working around the clock, surviving on terrible food and zero sleep. He ended up gaining 50 pounds, his blood pressure spiked dangerously high, and he found himself sitting in a doctor's office hearing a grim warning.
His doctor basically looked at him and said that if he continued operating at that pace, his body was going to give out.
Sabatier identifies that dangerous phase as money masking. It is the trap of believing that acquiring more money will automatically solve your internal problems. He had actually achieved his goal of financial independence, but he was physically broken and miserable.
That health crisis was the catalyst that forced him to realize a high net worth means absolutely nothing if you don't have the health or the peace of mind to enjoy it. It fundamentally shifted his approach from optimizing for profit to optimizing for peace.
So what does this all mean? How do you practically structure a business so it doesn't just become a more stressful version of a 9-to-5?
Sabatier maps this out through what he calls the 4 levels of entrepreneurship. It is a roadmap designed to prevent you from getting trapped in the grind.
Let's walk through those.
The journey logically starts at level 1, the experimental entrepreneur. This phase is characterized by keeping things incredibly small and hands-on. You are the entire company. You do the marketing, you handle the bookkeeping, you deliver the service.
And the objective here isn't to get rich, right?
No, it's to deeply understand the basic mechanics of cash flow and customer acquisition. You have to assume you will make mistakes at this level, but because your overhead is near zero, you can fail fast, learn the lesson, and pivot without facing financial ruin.
Once you prove the concept, you move to level 2, the solopreneur. This is where your experiment transforms into a sustainable entity. You have consistent revenue coming in, and you are starting to document your processes, but you still don't have full-time employees.
You are making real money, but you are still heavily trading your own time to generate that revenue.
And Sabatier notes that a lot of people get stuck right here because the transition to the next level requires a massive psychological shift.
Which brings you to level 3, The growth entrepreneur. The primary defining factor of level 3 is that you finally sever the link between your time and your income.
You do this by hiring people to run the systems you built back in level 2.
The psychological hurdle is giving up control, but it is mandatory if you want to buy back your time. However, Sabatier strongly warns against the Silicon Valley mindset of growth hacking.
Right, don't just grow for the sake of growing.
Exactly. You don't scale just to stroke your own ego or hit an arbitrary revenue target. You only grow the business to the exact extent that it supports your ideal lifestyle and frees up your schedule.
If you master that, you reach level 4, the empire entrepreneur. At this stage, your primary business is generating more cash than it actually needs to operate. So you establish a holding company. You begin focusing heavily on tax efficiency, wealth preservation, and diversification.
But Sabatier completely redefines what an empire looks like.
Yeah, he really does. It doesn't mean becoming some ruthless corporate titan buying up skyscrapers. When Sabatier hit this level, he used his holding company to open a brick-and-mortar bookstore in Clintonville, Ohio.
And independent bookstores are famously low-margin businesses.
He didn't do it for the yield. He did it because he genuinely loves books and wanted to create a cultural hub for his local community. His empire is a tool to generate personal joy.
To summarize that entire progression, Sabatier offers a remarkably simple equation to define the perfect business. It is the intersection of 4 variables: time plus skills plus passion plus market.
Time, skills, passion, market.
Yes. You have to evaluate how much time you are realistically willing to commit. Leverage the skills you already possess or can easily acquire. Ensure you actually care about the daily work, and confirm there is a real market willing to pay for it. If you align those 4 elements, you insulate yourself from burnout.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How do you make the granular day-to-day decisions to ensure you stay aligned with that equation? Sabatier filters his decisions through what he calls the 7 truths of successful entrepreneurs.
And instead of viewing these as strict business rules, think of them as philosophical guardrails.
The first of those guardrails challenges the very definition of freedom. Sabatier argues that freedom actually stems from strict limits.
That sounds like a paradox.
It does, but he illustrates this with a great story from his childhood. His parents finally gave him permission to ride his bike past his own street and explore the deep woods nearby. He thought it would be ultimate freedom, but he found the endless space and infinite directions completely overwhelming. He didn't know what to do.
So what did he do?
He and his friend built a fort. By creating a physical boundary, a limit, they actually created a safe space where they could be totally free within those walls.
That maps perfectly onto the psychological reality of the paradox of choice. When an entrepreneur has unlimited options, infinite marketing channels, endless product iterations, a global customer base, it causes severe decision fatigue and anxiety.
Yes.
By deliberately setting strict limits on your business, such as clearly defining the specific types of clients you will absolutely never work with, you eliminate the noise and preserve your mental energy.
That reliance on internal boundaries naturally leads to truth, too, which is how he processes information. We are constantly told to be data-driven and to analyze every metric before making a move. But Sabatier leans heavily into trusting what you feel before what you think.
The rational mind is important, but intuition is essentially a massive, highly efficient database of subconscious pattern recognition. He suggests letting your intuition point the direction and only then bringing in the rational data to verify and support the path.
Which fundamentally changes how you view your own capabilities, leading into truth 3, double down on strengths.
Right. If you're operating from intuition and self-awareness, you quickly realize the inefficiency of trying to fix all your weaknesses. The prevailing culture glorifies the self-made, rugged individual who can do it all. Sabatier rejects that entirely, advocating that you should ruthlessly double down on your strengths and outsource everything else.
His approach to this is so pragmatic. He realized he absolutely despised doing household chores. It drained his energy and put him in a terrible mindset. So instead of forcing himself to be disciplined about it, he hired a local college student.
Smart move.
He paid the student $20 an hour to do his family's laundry and dishes, which cost him about $400 a month. But that single expense bought back 20 hours of his life every single week.
When you calculate the return on investment of injecting 20 hours of focused energy back into a scaling business or just into resting with your family, that $400 is a massive bargain.
Moving on to truth 4, incentives drive everything. That principle of leverage extends directly to how you handle the people you eventually hire.
Exactly. When you reach that third level of entrepreneurship, understanding incentives is critical. Replacing a good employee is shockingly expensive. Standard estimates show it costs a company 40 to 60% of that employee's first-year salary in lost productivity and training.
So losing people is a massive drain on cash flow.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the defense against that turnover isn't just handing out standard yearly bonuses. You have to personalize the incentives. A 25-year-old hire might be highly motivated by aggressive cash bonuses and rapid title promotions,
Sure.
but a 40-year-old hire with 2 kids might value the ability to leave at 3 p.m. on Thursdays far more than a slight bump in pay. If you take the time to figure out exactly what makes your team's life better, they will fiercely protect the business.
That kind of targeted focus also applies to the product side, which is Truth 5. Master one thing, then diversify. It is very tempting for new entrepreneurs to launch a website offering 10 different services right out of the gate, hoping something sticks.
It rarely does.
Sabatier points to founders who master one single thing before they ever consider diversifying. He brings up Travis Hornsby, who founded Student Loan Planner. Hornsby didn't try to be a general wealth advisor. He mastered one highly complex proprietary spreadsheet that helped professionals figure out how to navigate and refinance massive six-figure student debt.
Talk about a specific niche.
He became the undisputed expert in that one hyper-specific area. Only after dominating that narrow field did he begin to expand his offerings.
Operating in a narrow niche also reframes how you view your peers. This brings us to Truth 6. Cooperation is greater than competition. The traditional corporate mindset operates on the assumption that business is a zero-sum war. If someone else wins, you lose.
Sabatier argues the opposite.
He shares an incredible example from 2018 when he joined a mastermind group alongside 20 of his direct competitors in the personal finance space.
Instead of keeping their strategies guarded, they opened up their playbooks to each other. They shared their best SEO tactics, swapped marketing resources, and actively promoted each other's work.
By pooling their knowledge, that small collective of solopreneurs was able to outrank and outmaneuver massive corporate media conglomerates that had tens of millions of dollars in backing. They elevated the entire group by refusing to fight over scraps.
And the mechanism that makes all of this possible, the cooperation, the outsourcing, the boundary setting, is Truth 7. Momentum.
Sabatier observes that unproductive people frequently suffer from analysis paralysis. They spend weeks trying to optimize a single decision, terrified of making the wrong choice.
Productive people understand that speed is an asset. Choice leads to action, action generates momentum, and momentum inevitably produces results.
If you make a quick decision and it fails, you have fresh data. You learn, you pivot, and you keep moving.
It is so much easier to steer a car that is already rolling.
This raises an important question, though. When you successfully apply all of these frameworks, when you escape the W-2, scale through the 4 levels, and implement these truths, how do you measure the final result?
That's the real test.
Sabatier anchors his entire philosophy with a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. The amount of happiness that you have depends on the amount of freedom you have in your heart. The ultimate metric of a successful business isn't a revenue milestone. It is whether or not you have built an internal scorecard that allows you to experience genuine joy.
Entrepreneurship is ultimately just a vehicle. It is a tool you use to aggressively subtract the obligations you despise from your life and systematically add the things you genuinely love.
Well said.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to consider. Let's assume you follow this blueprint. You outsource your weaknesses, you build your systems, and you buy back 40 hours of your week. With all that sudden quiet space in your mind, free from financial anxiety and the demands of a boss who is the person you actually become, what is the very first thing you do on your first completely free Monday morning? It's a tension worth chewing on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Take one small, unoptimized action today to build your momentum, and we will see you next time.